The massive space station called Crossroads hung in the empty space between star systems like a giant metal flower. Its spinning arms stretched out in all directions, each one bigger than most planets. Ships from dozens of different alien races docked at its ports every day. Traders, diplomats, and travelers from across the galaxy came here to do business. But today, the station felt different. Tension filled the air like electricity before a storm. In the main conference hall, two very different groups sat across from each other at a long table. On one side sat the representatives of the Valerian Empire. They were tall, proud warriors with skin that looked like polished metal and eyes that glowed with inner fire. Their 4 arms moved gracefully as they spoke, and their voices carried the weight of 1,000 conquered worlds. On the other side sat the humans. They looked small and soft compared to the Valorians. Their pale skin showed no armor, their single pair of arms seemed weak, and their voices were quiet. Most aliens in the galaxy saw humans as a young race, barely worth notice. The argument had been going on for hours. 3 star systems lay between Valerian and human space. Both sides claimed them. Both sides wanted them. Neither side would back down. Kira stood behind the lead Valerian diplomat like a living weapon. She was 7 feet tall and built like a mountain. Her 4 arms were thick with muscle, and her crystalline armor caught the light from the station's windows. Scars covered her face and arms, each one a story of battles won. In her 200 years of life, she had never lost a single fight. She watched the humans with growing disgust. How could such weak creatures dare to stand against the Valerian Empire? The biggest human at the table barely reached her shoulder. Their diplomat, a gray-haired woman named Director Lin, spoke in a calm voice that made Kira want to roar with frustration. The survey data clearly shows that human explorers reached those systems first, Director Lin was saying. Our mining stations were already operating there when your ships arrived. The Valerian diplomat, Ambassador Thane, slammed 2 of his fists on the table. The sound echoed through the hall like thunder. First arrival means nothing. Only strength matters. Those systems belong to the strong, not to scavengers who hide behind rocks and dig in dirt. Director Lin did not flinch. We prefer to call it industry and agriculture. Those systems can support billions of lives if developed properly. Properly. Kira could not stay silent any longer. Her voice boomed across the hall. You speak of development while you cower in your metal shells. You know nothing of true strength. All eyes turned to her. The other Valorians nodded their approval. The humans looked at her with steady gazes that showed no fear. This made Kira even angrier. Ambassador Thane raised one hand to quiet her, but his eyes gleamed with interest. Perhaps my warrior speaks wisdom. We have talked for days and reached no agreement. Words solve nothing when both sides stand firm. Director Lin leaned back in her chair. What do you suggest? Trial by combat. The words fell from Thane's mouth like stones into still water. An ancient solution to an old problem. Each side chooses a champion. They fight. The winner takes all. The human delegation whispered among themselves. Kira felt her heart beat faster. Finally, a chance to end this waste of time. She would crush whatever weak human they put forward, and the contested systems would belong to the Valerian Empire where they belonged. Director Lin stopped whispering with her people and looked up. We accept. Kira grinned, showing teeth like white knives. Excellent. I volunteer to represent the Valerian Empire. And we choose our champion as well. Director Lin stood up and walked to the back of the room where other humans waited. She stopped in front of a man who had been quietly reading something on a small device. The man looked up when she tapped his shoulder. He was not tall or short, not fat or thin. His brown hair was messy and his clothes were simple work clothing. Oil stains marked his hands, and he smelled faintly of metal and machinery. He looked like exactly what he was, a worker, not a warrior. Ben, Director Lin said, would you represent humanity in this trial? Ben blinked and looked around the room. Every eye was on him. The Valorian stared with expressions that mixed confusion and amusement. His fellow humans watched him with trust and hope. Are you sure? He asked. His voice was quiet and calm. I mean, I'm just maintenance crew. I fix things that break. That's exactly why we're sure, Director Lin replied. Ben nodded slowly and stood up. He was average height for a human, which made him tiny compared to Kira. No muscles bulged under his shirt. No scars marked his face. He looked like someone who had never thrown a punch in his life. Kira stared at him with growing disbelief. This is your champion. This soft little creature. Ben looked at her without anger or fear. Hello. I guess we're going to fight. The casual way he said it made Kira's anger flare hotter. Did he not understand what was happening? Did he not realize she could break him in half without effort? This is an insult, she snarled, turning to Ambassador Thane. They mock us with this choice. Perhaps they simply accept defeat, Thane replied. But his eyes were thoughtful as he watched Ben. Something about the human's calm manner puzzled him. Director Lin returned to the table. Our champion has accepted. What are the rules? Ambassador Thane straightened in his chair. Traditional combat rules apply. The fight continues until one champion yields, becomes unable to continue, or dies. The winning champion claims victory for their people. We agree. Ben gets to choose the location and type of combat. This was standard in Valorian culture, the challenged party selected the battlefield. Thane expected the humans to pick somewhere safe, maybe the station's gymnasium or a cargo bay with soft surfaces. Ben cleared his throat. I'd like to fight in Section C7. A hush fell over the room. Even the humans looked surprised. Kira felt a chill run down her spine. Section C7 was the most dangerous part of Crossroads Station. A damaged section where repairs were still ongoing. The gravity generators only worked part of the time. Live electrical cables hung loose from the ceiling. Atmosphere leaked out through cracks in the hull. The artificial gravity shifted without warning, sometimes working normally, sometimes pulling in wrong directions, sometimes not working at all. It was a place where maintenance workers went to fix critical systems. It was not a place anyone would choose to fight. You cannot be serious, Kira said. Ben shrugged. Those are the rules, right? I picked the place. Ambassador Thane looked troubled. That section is extremely hazardous. Both fighters could be killed by environmental factors before the combat even matters. Are Valorian warriors afraid of a little danger? Director Lin asked sweetly. The question hit like a physical blow. No Valorian could back down from such a challenge without losing face completely. Kira felt the trap closing around them, but pride would not let her refuse. The Valorian Empire fears nothing, she declared. If the human wishes to die in that cursed place, I will accommodate him. Ben nodded politely. Great. When do we start? Ambassador Thane checked the time. 1 hour. That gives both fighters time to prepare and allows station security to set up monitoring equipment. The meeting broke up into smaller groups. Valorians clustered around Kira, giving her advice and encouragement. Humans surrounded Ben, but their conversation was too quiet for alien ears to hear. Kira spent the hour checking her weapons and armor. Her crystalline battle suit could deflect most energy weapons and absorb impacts that would crush a normal being. Her 4 energy pistols were charged and ready. Her combat computer ran through thousands of fighting scenarios, calculating optimal moves and counterattacks. She was ready for anything the human could throw at her. Or so she thought. When the hour ended, both groups moved toward Section C7. The corridors grew darker and more damaged as they walked. Emergency lights blinked red warnings about atmospheric hazards. The air tasted of metal and ozone. They reached the entrance to the combat zone. Beyond the sealed door lay a twisted maze of damaged corridors, broken machinery, and deadly hazards. Cameras had been set up to record the fight for both sides to witness. Ben stood beside the door in the same work clothes he had worn to the meeting. He carried no weapons, no armor, just a small toolkit on his belt. He looked completely relaxed, like he was heading to fix a broken air recycler instead of fight for the fate of 3 star systems. Kira wore her full battle gear. Energy weapons gleamed in her 4 hands. Her armor hummed with power. She looked like destruction given form. Last chance to surrender, she offered. Ben smiled. Thanks, but I think I'll give it a try. The door opened with a hiss of escaping air. Beyond it lay darkness, danger, and the future of 2 civilizations. They stepped forward together, and the door sealed behind them. The trial by combat had begun. The damaged section of Crossroads Station stretched out before them like a nightmare made of metal and sparks. Broken pipes leaked steam into the corridor. Exposed wiring crackled with dangerous electricity. The floor was torn open in several places, showing the dark space between levels. Emergency lights blinked on and off, casting moving shadows that made everything look alive and threatening. Ben stepped carefully over a pile of twisted metal. His movements were steady and sure, like someone who had walked through places like this many times before. He knew where to step and what not to touch. Kira followed behind him, her heavy boots clanging on the metal floor. Her 4 arms held her energy weapons ready. She felt confident despite the dangerous surroundings. After all, she was a warrior trained from birth. This human was just a worker who fixed broken things. Ready? Ben asked, turning to face her. I was born ready, Kira replied. The fight began. Kira moved first, faster than human eyes could follow. Her lower 2 hands fired energy bolts while her upper hands swung plasma blades. The attacks came from 4 directions at once, a storm of deadly force that would have destroyed any normal opponent. Ben dove sideways behind a large piece of broken machinery. The energy bolts hit the metal and scattered in bright sparks. He rolled and came up running, heading deeper into the damaged section. Kira smiled grimly and followed. The hunt was on. She caught up with him in a wider corridor where gravity generators hung loose from the ceiling. Some sparked with electrical problems. Others swung back and forth like deadly pendulums. Ben crouched behind an overturned work table, breathing hard. Hiding will not save you, Kira called out. She raised all 4 weapons and fired at once. The table exploded into pieces. Ben rolled away just in time, but Kira was already moving. She leaped over the debris and landed right in front of him. Her plasma blade swept down toward his head. Ben twisted away at the last second. The blade cut through the metal floor like butter, sending up showers of sparks. He stumbled backward and almost fell through a hole in the floor. Kira pressed her attack. She was stronger, faster, and better armed. Each strike drove Ben further back. Each blast from her energy weapons came closer to hitting him. Soon she would corner him, and the fight would be over. But something strange began to happen. As Ben retreated through the damaged section, he started to move differently. His steps became more confident. His turns seemed to predict exactly where the next safe spot would be. When a gravity generator above them began to spark and fail, Ben somehow knew it would happen 3 seconds before it did. He ducked under the falling generator just as it crashed to the floor. Kira, following close behind, had to leap over it. The brief delay gave Ben time to reach the next corridor. This pattern repeated again and again. Ben would seem to be losing, retreating under Kira's relentless attacks. But each time she thought she had him trapped, he would find an escape route that she could not see. He moved through the dangerous environment like he could read its mind. Kira began to feel frustrated. How did he know which floor sections would hold his weight? How did he predict when the artificial gravity would shift directions? Most importantly, how was he staying one step ahead of her superior speed and training? The answer came to her gradually. Ben was not just running through the damaged section. He was reading it. Every loose wire, every cracked wall panel, every failing system told him a story. He understood this place in a way that she never could. It was like fighting someone who could see the future. They reached a junction where 3 corridors met. The area was a disaster of broken machinery and exposed systems. Atmosphere leaked out through cracks in the hull with a constant whistling sound. The emergency lighting had failed completely, leaving only the glow from damaged equipment to see by. Kira cornered Ben against a wall covered in control panels. Half of them were dark. The others flickered with warning lights and error messages. "Nowhere left to run," she said, raising her weapons. Ben looked at the panels behind him, then at her. "Actually, I think I need to fix something." Before Kira could react, Ben spun around and pulled open one of the control panels. Inside was a mess of wires, circuits, and blinking lights. Without hesitation, he reached into the electrical system with his bare hands. Kira fired all 4 weapons at once. Energy bolts streaked toward Ben's back. The corridor exploded with light. Ben had done something to the power systems. Every loose wire in the area suddenly carried 10 times its normal electrical load. The air filled with arcing electricity that danced between metal surfaces like lightning. Kira's energy bolts were absorbed and redirected by the electrical storm Ben had created. The redirected energy struck the ceiling above Kira's head. A massive piece of machinery broke loose and fell toward her. She rolled aside just in time, but the falling debris blocked her view of Ben. When the electrical storm died down and the debris settled, Ben was gone. Kira roared with anger and frustration. The human was making her look foolish. She activated her armor's sensor systems and began tracking him through the station's damaged corridors. She found him 2 levels down, working on what looked like an atmospheric processing unit. The machine was making terrible grinding noises and leaking poisonous gas into the air around it. Ben had his toolkit out and was methodically replacing damaged components. "What are you doing?" Kira demanded. Ben looked up from his work. "This processor is about to fail completely. If it does, it will poison the air in this entire section. We would both die in about 10 minutes. So I'm fixing it." Ben went back to work, completely ignoring the fact that Kira was pointing 4 weapons at him. Kira felt her anger building to dangerous levels. "We are supposed to be fighting. We are fighting." Ben pulled out a burnt circuit board and replaced it with a new one from his toolkit. "I'm just fighting differently than you are." She fired an energy bolt at him. Ben ducked without looking up from his repair work. The bolt hit the atmospheric processor and damaged it further. More poisonous gas began leaking into the air. "Now look what you did," Ben said calmly. He pulled out another replacement part and kept working. Kira realized that she could not attack him without making their situation worse. If she destroyed the machine Ben was fixing, they would both die from the poisonous air. She was forced to wait and watch while he completed the repair. It took him 5 minutes to get the processor working properly again. When he finished, the dangerous gas stopped leaking and clean air began flowing through the corridor once more. "There," Ben said, closing his toolkit. "Much better. Now can we fight properly?" Kira asked through gritted teeth. "Sure." The chase resumed, but now Kira noticed something that made her deeply uneasy. As they moved through the damaged section, Ben was not just escaping from her attacks. He was fixing things. Every broken system they passed, every failed component, every dangerous malfunction, Ben would somehow work a repair into their running battle. He rerouted power around damaged cables while dodging plasma blade strikes. He stabilized failing gravity generators while energy bolts flew over his head. He patched hull breaches and fixed life support systems and repaired communication arrays, all while staying just ahead of Kira's relentless pursuit. Most disturbing of all, each repair made their battlefield safer and more stable. The environment that had been Ben's ally was slowly becoming more normal. The advantages he gained from knowing the broken systems were disappearing as he fixed them. Why would he do that? Why would he give up his only advantage? Kira began to realize that she was not fighting a warrior at all. She was fighting something she had never encountered before, someone whose first instinct was to repair and preserve, even in the middle of mortal combat. The thought filled her with a strange mixture of respect and terror. They reached the central hub of the damaged section. This was where the worst damage was located. A massive explosion months earlier had torn open the hull and destroyed most of the critical systems. The artificial gravity was completely unreliable here, sometimes pulling in different directions in the same room. Electrical fires burned in several places. The atmosphere was thin and hard to breathe. It was the most dangerous place on the entire station. Ben stood in the center of the hub, surrounded by broken machinery and sparking systems. He no longer looked like he was running away. He looked like he was making a stand. "This is where it ends," Kira said, raising all 4 weapons. Ben nodded and pulled out his toolkit one more time. "Yes, it is." Behind him, warning lights began flashing red throughout the hub. Something big was about to fail, something that would threaten far more than just the two of them. The final phase of their battle was about to begin. The central hub of Section C-7 looked like the inside of a dying star. Red warning lights flashed everywhere, casting bloody shadows on the twisted metal walls. Broken machinery hung from the ceiling like the bones of some massive creature. The air tasted of burning circuits and ozone. Ben stood in the middle of this mechanical graveyard, his toolkit open at his feet. Behind him, a wall of control panels blinked with angry red warnings. Every screen showed the same terrifying message: critical system failure, atmospheric breach imminent. Kira circled him like a predator, her 4 weapons trained on his chest. Her crystalline armor reflected the emergency lights, making her look like a creature made of fire and metal. "Finally," she said, her voice echoing in the large space. "No more running. No more hiding. Just you and me." Ben picked up a scanning device from his toolkit and pointed it at the control panels behind him. The readings made him frown with concern. "We have a bigger problem than our fight." "The only problem is that you are still breathing," Kira replied. She fired all 4 weapons at once. Ben threw himself sideways, rolling behind a massive piece of fallen machinery. The energy bolt struck the control panels where he had been standing. Sparks erupted from the damaged systems, and several more warning lights began flashing. "Stop shooting at the controls." Ben called out from behind his cover. "You're making everything worse." Kira laughed harshly. "Good. When this section loses atmosphere, we will both die quickly. Better than letting you dishonor me further with your cowardly tactics." She moved to flank his position, her heavy boots ringing on the metal floor. Her armor's sensors showed her exactly where Ben was hiding. There was nowhere left for him to run. But Ben was not trying to run anymore. Instead, he was studying the readings on his scanner with growing alarm. The numbers were getting worse by the second. "Kira, listen to me," he called out, still hidden behind the machinery. "The atmospheric containment field for this entire section is failing. Not just here, the whole central core of the station. If it collapses, it will create a chain reaction." "More human lies," Kira snarled, moving closer to his position. "Look at your own sensors," Ben said urgently. "Check the atmospheric readings for sectors D through J." Despite herself, Kira glanced at the data from her armor systems. Her glowing eyes widened with shock. Ben was telling the truth. The readings showed a massive atmospheric breach building throughout the central sections of Crossroads Station. "Impossible," she whispered. "The explosion that damaged this section months ago did more harm than anyone realized," Ben continued, his voice tight with concentration. It weakened the containment systems throughout the station's core. All the fighting we've been doing, all the energy discharge from your weapons, it's been putting stress on systems that were already ready to fail. Kira looked around the hub with new understanding. The warning lights, the system failures, the growing instability, it was all connected. And it was all getting worse. How long? She asked. Maybe 10 minutes before the cascade failure starts. After that, maybe 30 minutes before the entire central core loses atmosphere. We're talking about the deaths of 50,000 beings on this station. The weight of those numbers hit Kira like a physical blow. 50,000 lives. Men, women, children from dozens of species. All dead because of their fight. What can we do? She found herself asking. Ben stood up from behind his cover, completely ignoring the weapons still pointed at him. I can fix it. Maybe. If I can reroute power from the backup systems and reinforce the containment field generators. But I need to access the primary control matrix, and it's right behind you. Kira turned to look at the wall of control panels she had been guarding. They were the nerve center of the station's atmospheric systems. If Ben could reach them, he might be able to prevent the catastrophe. But that would mean letting him win their fight. This could be a trick, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Check the readings again, Ben replied quietly. They're getting worse every second we waste. Kira's sensors confirmed his words. The containment field was weakening faster now. What had been a crisis was becoming an emergency. Soon it would become a disaster beyond imagination. She faced the hardest choice of her warrior life. Honor demanded that she continue the fight, that she prove Valerian superiority through combat. But honor also demanded that she protect innocent lives. 50,000 innocent lives. Slowly, Kira lowered her weapons. Ben nodded his thanks and ran to the control panels. His fingers flew over the controls with practiced skill. Numbers scrolled across the screens as he worked. The warnings grew more urgent with each passing moment. It's worse than I thought, Ben muttered, pulling open access panels and reaching into the systems beyond. The damage goes deeper than the sensors could detect. I need to physically reroute the primary power coupling. He disappeared into a maintenance shaft barely wide enough for a human body. Kira could hear him working inside the station's mechanical systems, the sounds of tools and sparking electricity echoing from the narrow space. The containment field is down to 60%, Kira called out, reading from her armor's displays. I know, Ben's voice came from somewhere inside the maintenance system. I'm working as fast as I can. Minutes passed. The warnings grew more severe. The containment field weakened further. Kira found herself watching the readings with growing dread. She, a warrior who had faced death 1,000 times without fear, was terrified by the thought of all those innocent people dying. 50%, she announced. No response from Ben. Only the sounds of frantic repair work. 45%. More sparking from inside the maintenance shaft. Something was going wrong. Ben. Kira called out. The primary coupling is completely burned out, Ben's voice was strained. I'm going to have to bypass it manually. That means holding the power connection in place with my bare hands while the system reroutes. Kira understood what that meant. The electrical current flowing through those systems would be enough to kill a human instantly. Ben was volunteering to die to save the station. There has to be another way, she said. There isn't. Not in the time we have left. 40%, Kira read from her display, her voice barely a whisper. Tell my people I tried to fix it, Ben said from inside the maintenance shaft. Tell them the job got done. Kira heard him take a deep breath. Then she heard the sound of electrical contact being made. Ben screamed. The lights throughout the hub flared brighter as massive amounts of power flowed through the rerouted systems. The screaming continued for several seconds, then stopped abruptly. Kira stared at the containment field readings. 41%. 42. 43. The numbers began climbing steadily. Ben's repair was working. She ran to the maintenance shaft and looked inside. Ben lay unconscious among the cables and circuits. His hands were burned and his clothes were singed, but he was breathing. Somehow, he had survived the electrical surge that should have killed him. The containment field reached 60% and continued climbing. The warnings began to fade from the control panels. The crisis was over. Kira carefully pulled Ben out of the maintenance shaft and checked his injuries. Burns on his hands and arms, but nothing life-threatening. His pulse was strong and steady. He had done it. He had saved them all. When Ben woke up 20 minutes later, the first thing he saw was Kira sitting beside him. Her weapons lay on the floor nearby, forgotten. "Did it work?" he asked weakly. Kira nodded. "The containment field is stable. The station is safe." Ben smiled and tried to sit up. "Good. That's what matters." "You could have died," Kira said quietly. "So could 50,000 other people if I hadn't tried." The simple way he said it, like it was the most obvious thing in the galaxy, made Kira finally understand. This human, this ordinary maintenance worker, had faced certain death to save the lives of strangers. Not for glory, not for honor, not for victory in combat. Simply because it was the right thing to do. "I yield," she said. Ben looked surprised. "What?" "The combat. I yield. You have won. But I never even threw a punch." Kira shook her head slowly. "You did something far more impressive than winning a fight. You saved everyone on this station, including me. You chose to preserve life instead of taking it. That is a strength I have never seen before." Ben struggled to his feet, wincing from his burns. "It's not really strength. It's just what humans do. We fix things that are broken. We protect people who need protecting. We try to make things better instead of worse." Those words echoed in Kira's mind as they made their way back to the main conference hall. When the doors opened, both delegations rushed forward. The Valorians expected to see their champion victorious over the defeated human. The humans expected to comfort their friend in defeat. Instead, they found Kira supporting the wounded Ben as they walked together. "What happened?" Ambassador Thane demanded. "I lost," Kira said simply. "Completely and absolutely." The Valorians stared in shock. Their greatest warrior, defeated by an unarmed human maintenance worker. "But the contested star systems," Thane began. "Belong to the humans, as agreed," Kira replied. "But I have a different proposal." She helped Ben to a chair and faced both delegations. "The humans have shown us something we never understood. True strength is not about destroying your enemies. It is about protecting everyone, even your enemies, when they need protection. It is about fixing what is broken instead of breaking what is whole." She paused and looked at Ben, who was quietly bandaging his burned hands. "The Valerian Empire formally requests that humanity teach us these skills. We offer our protection services in exchange for your knowledge of preservation and repair. We want to learn how to build instead of just conquer." Director Lin smiled. "I think that can be arranged." Ambassador Thane looked confused. "But the Warrior Code demands." "The Warrior Code serves the people," Kira interrupted. "And the people are best served by learning from those who put life before death, creation before destruction." She turned to Ben one more time. "You asked me what true strength was. Now I know. It is the strength to choose life over victory, even when victory seems more important." Ben finished bandaging his hands and stood up. "Well, I should probably get back to work. There's a maintenance request for Sector F-12 that I've been putting off." As he walked toward the door, the entire room, Valerian and human alike, watched him go. The most important diplomatic breakthrough in galactic history had just been achieved by a man whose only concern was getting back to his job fixing broken things. The galaxy would never be the same. And Ben would never understand why everyone kept staring at him like he had done something special. After all, he had just been doing his job. Part 3, 2000 words ka leko or interesting huna chia or third-person style ma lekni ho or simple basic English ka. Don't use any violated word. So please avoid any violated content. Don't use ...